Alrighty, g'day guys. Long time no speak. I'm going to look to be doing a few more of these videos and putting the shorts on the social media and stuff to make it a bit easier on myself using this platform. Hey, look, today I want to go through. I want to talk about exiting the military and first responder kind of jobs. I want to talk about what that looks like sometimes and some of the negative aspects of leaving those jobs and how it can make you feel, and maybe some things that might help put that behind you and put things into perspective a bit more. So for context, just the other day, I was privy to a conversation with some former work colleagues of mine, and basically one of the guys who was a very senior guy who'd been in the military and the unit for quite a long time, he said, hey, look, guys, I've just recently transitioned into civilian life from the military. This is sort of, a rundown of my service, the contributions I'd made and the sort of things that I've done in my time, right? And it was very significant, operationally, training-wise in Australia, all sorts of stuff. And he said it was pretty much like one day I was in the military and then one day I just kind of woke up and I wasn't. And he said, look, I'm not here looking for special treatment. I'm not saying I need the world's biggest parade just for me. But he said, when I left with nothing. There was no handshake, there was no thanks for coming, there was no little presento plaque thing, no special coin, no patches, no handshake. He said literally not a thing, nothing. No lunch, no farewell speech from anyone, literally not even a handshake, just walked out one day after a significant amount of time in the military. Literally longer in the military than I've been alive. And in this conversation, there was a few other people that sort of said, hey man, that really sucks, you're a great guy, etc. And a few people said, yeah, same thing happened to me, it's no good kind of thing. And I want to just very briefly outline my exit, because I want you to understand the context of my answer and why I understand some of the answers I'm going to give. So I left in 2019. About a year and a half prior to that, I made a suicide attempt. I had some pretty severe depression, and in general, I was struggling a lot in life, especially at work, right? I was massively reduced in my capacity, just went through a relationship breakup, all sorts of stuff, right? And in that time, I did manage to medically upgrade and get back into the assault platoons. I lost my job as a canine handler, but I managed to get back in the assault platoons and keep doing my job. But ultimately, what happened was it was kind of too much for me. I was able to cheat the system and upgrade medically, but then when it came time to actually going out and doing what I used to do, I was far reduced in what I was able to do. And that in itself was a huge hit to my ego, my pride. There was a lot of shame, embarrassment, etc. So I made the decision to leave, basically. There were a couple of people that sort of gently suggested, like, hey man, just go kind of thing, right? We don't know what to do with you, just go. So I did. But in that time, when I was in rehabilitation, and especially once I'd made the decision to leave, what I noticed was that I got forgotten about, right? People weren't giving me things to do, or the things they were giving me to do were trivial and mundane and more afterthoughts, what do we do with this guy? And after a while, I actually stopped showing up to work, right? It started, I would rock up to work, I would go in the base, kind of look around, everyone would be doing stuff, training and whatnot, things that I was no longer involved in. So I'll just go home. And I did that for a little while, and then after a while I just went, I'm just not going to go in. No one notices, no one seems to care. And that's how it happened. And then one day, it was about a month before my actual leave date started, long service, and then the discharge, I just stopped rocking up to work. And I went to Queensland, a state above my previous state, a month early. So I was interstate AWOL technically for a month after just having been through suicide attempt and some significant depression, mental health dramas. And not a fucking thing. I got no phone calls, I got no texts, there was no farewell, no exit interview from my staff, nothing, not a thing. And it actually took me quite a long time to come to terms with the reality of what that situation was. Obviously, I had a lot of insecurity at that time because of what I'd gone through in the rehabilitation process, and I thought that I was no longer a valued member of this unit because I couldn't make a contribution and I didn't belong anymore. And for those of you who've followed my stuff, you know that I talk a lot about the three fundamental questions that we're always asking ourselves, right? Am I worthy? Do I belong? Do I matter? And a lot of the times the way we answer those questions is through our job. It's through skills, it's through roles, and it's through our job, and it's through competence. And whilst there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, when it does go wrong, if you don't have a redundancy, that's when you can be in a bad place. That's when you can dwell on those things and you start going to a place that you shouldn't go, right? So long story short, this guy basically brought this up and said, yep, this is my experience leaving. I'm not looking for special treatment, but hey, do you think we can do this stuff a bit better? And there was a general consensus, yes, we can do it better. And so what I had to realize, I think, was the first thing I had to realize was that I'd massively overinvested my identity in my job. I had no backup. I had no redundancy. I didn't know who I was outside that job. And even worse than that, in what I call the identity reality disparity, right? The identity that I was aspiring to be, the person I wanted to be, versus the perceived reality of where I was, there was a huge disparity. There was a huge gap, right? And when there's a big gap like that, you often fill it with things like shame and guilt, low self-worth, all those negative things that we normally go through, right? Because you're like, the way I answered those three questions, am I worthy, do I belong, do I matter, has now just been destroyed. It's been taken away from me. I don't feel worthy, I don't feel like I belong, and I don't feel like I matter, right? So I left bad. And I definitely was angry. I put it aside for a while. I tried not to think about it. I was bitter and resentful towards a lot of the people I used to work with, the organisation, etc. And then I basically went into running small businesses. I was doing dog training, a few other things like that. And the business stuff evolved, and obviously now I am where I am, and it's very different. However, what I didn't realise I was doing was starting to rebuild my worth and starting to rebuild my belonging and my contribution, right? Whether I mattered or not. Now, in a sense, I was probably making the same mistake, right? I'd left one over-invested sense of identity and gone into another one. Okay, I just cut and dry, move on to the next thing. But what I did do was I built up a huge amount of worth in the small business. And the way I did that was by doing things that helped me realize how capable I truly am, right? So I started my own business. I ended up employing 2 different people. I basically had a passive income for a period there. I shut that business down literally on stage while I was getting a business award. And that was just evidence to me that I'm extremely capable. And the person that I was who joined that job, that job didn't make me who I am. I am the person that joined that job. And just because that job fell apart, it doesn't mean that the attributes and the inherent worth that I have went with it. It just meant that the mechanism had changed. I just lost one of the mechanisms by which I realized my worth, right? One of the pieces of evidence of my capacity, my connection, and my contribution was now gone. And I just needed to replace it, right? Now, I always advocate people having a big break after leaving the military or first responder world because it is an intense world and you do need a break. However, if you have a break for too long, that's when you start to go in that spiral again and start to think, I'm not worthy, I don't belong, I don't matter sort of thing. So over the course of doing this business work and then getting into the work that I do now, I started to realize that I have huge inherent worth. There are lots and lots of different places that I belong, including the former unit that I used to work for, right? And it also helped me realize that I can make a massive contribution. Watching the dog training business help people change their lives by helping their dogs get over behavioural issues, reducing their stress, making their relationship more enjoyable. I started Origin Canine, a manufacturing business with my own 2 hands in about 6 months with 0 experience, 0 training, and I physically did it with my own 2 hands, and I used my own money to do it as well. So I totally bootstrapped it. And that was something as well that made me realise how capable I was. But it also gave me a great answer to those same 3 questions. I was worthy because I'm able to do this. I have the capability and the capacity to do something like that because that's the kind of person I am. It gave me that connection back. It made me feel connected again to the canine community that I felt isolated from when I lost my job as a canine handler. And it made me feel like I mattered because I was able to make a contribution again to people's lives. Now, like I said, I may have overinvested and not had a redundancy at that time. However, it was a slow process, me realizing that even this job, even the business, is just evidence of my worth, my belonging, and my significance if I matter, and the contribution that I make, right? And now I understand that much broader than that, my worth is not defined by one job. It's defined by lots of things that I do, and also what I have the capacity to do and my capacity to build for. I realize that my belonging isn't just in the community that I'm in, it's the connection with the people that I have. All right, because you can find connection in lots of different places, not just one place, not just one community. And the capacity thing, the do I matter, making a contribution, I realize that I can make a contribution that's the tiniest contribution in terms of what I contribute, in terms of what I give, that can have a massive impact on somebody else's life, right? Now, I choose to try to make a big contribution through these videos and through the social media the podcasts, the tactical wellbeing workshops I do, the keynote speaking, all those sort of things. However, what I had to come to realize was that even if all of that went away, I still have a huge amount of capacity, and I can build it if I need to build more capacity. I still can find connection anywhere, and I can still make a contribution I can still even make the smallest contribution. Now, I would say if you've had a bad exit from the military or the first responder world and you feel unworthy, you feel like you don't belong and that you don't matter, 100% you are justified in thinking and feeling those things, right? And the way, if you've had a bad exit, you should not have a bad exit. Places like that should recognize your service, should recognize your contribution, should recognize the sacrifices that you've made in those jobs so that you've got a much better springboard to go and do the next thing that you're going to do. But folks, if it does not happen, I'm here to tell you that you have inherent worth, an unlimited worth. You can find belonging anywhere, and contribution can even be the tiniest thing. So if that's been your experience, go through the resentment, go through the anger, experience those things, express it somehow, somewhere, process it, get to a place of neutrality and knowledge and wisdom and understanding, and then move on to the next thing, knowing that you're worthy, you belong, and you matter.